Welcome to another episode of Morning Mojo with me, Shane Solomon. I'm delighted to have on the sofa here in the studio this morning, Devon Jewsbury. Welcome to the studio.
Ethan, thank you for having me.
Well, I want to get straight into it as I always do. How do you start your day and make sure you get on to the right track?
I think for me, I'm a creature of habit. I like having routines. I like having, the things that I can rely on so I don't have to think too much in the morning, especially if you're not a morning person, you just wake up, do the same thing. So things that you can rely on for me is coffee. So I appreciate having one of those when I turned up here this morning. But yeah, coffee and then usually food immediately afterwards.
So the attitude of gratitude starts with the coffee, and just intending that. I always say to people, it's a great way to start your day. Just start with something small, really achievable,
100%,
and intend that thing first thing in the day. Now, you're a coach. I want to ask you, how do you stay motivated to exercise regularly? That's the question.
It's an interesting question because a lot of people, there's the discrepancy between motivation and discipline, and it comes and goes, and it's just one of those human experiences, and that's okay. But some people can get really caught up over not having motivation and feeling like they don't really know what they're doing, they don't have drive for anything. And I think this is terrible form, but I'm going to answer a question with a question. What are you motivated to do?
In the morning when I get up, or
anytime.
For me, I'm just motivated for success, I guess, is my kind of motivation. And success, the best definition I've ever found, is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal.
Okay.
Right?
I like that.
So it's because success to everyone's different. Some people like money, some people like material things, some people like making people happy, all those things. So that's what motivates me, is to make sure each day that I leave each person I meet with the impression of increase. So they feel better for meeting me that day, and I've enhanced their life somehow. It might have just been a compliment saying, "Oh, nice watch. I like your watch."
Yeah.
Oh, thanks very much. That's nice. So that's what motivates me. And I'd love to say having a six pack, being totally healthy, not smoking, none of this stuff. But it's not. I mean, those are the things that I want to do.
Sure.
But yeah. So
that without putting words in your mouth, that's your reason why you're motivated. So motivation for me always comes from somewhere. And I think for you, having success and working with people and being successful, that's your reason why you're motivated. So I think if you've got that reason why, you've got something that's important to you, whether it be a goal or something you want to achieve or something you enjoy doing every day, it doesn't matter how difficult things get, or it doesn't matter how much adversity you come up against. If you've got something that is that important to you and really matters to you, then you can always lean on that. And even in those difficult moments when you're uncomfortable, you're unsure, if it really matters to you and you've got that reason why, then you can always fall back on that.
Absolutely. There's that saying, of course, if your why doesn't make you cry, then it's not strong enough.
Correct.
Yeah,
agree. 100%.
So you're absolutely right. And again, that's where everyone is totally different. So where did the journey start for you then? Were you motivated, inspired, from an early age, or did you, when was the earliest you felt like, I can achieve anything I want to, or?
Yeah, I feel like it was something that's been sort of drilled into me from a young age. I grew up on a farm, so we were naturally hard workers. Mum and dad, I followed suit through them, and then I played rugby from the age of 6. So I've always been involved in sport in a competitive environment, as well as sort of being hardworking at home as well. So I think it's always been important to apply yourself and off the back of that, help other people. Rugby being a team sport and working on a farm where you're looking after animals and you're helping each other to manage that whole sort of operation, if you like. I think that's just sort of bred it into me, if you like.
Sure. Now, one of the questions I got here, what would you say is the best cardio and weight training exercises to lose fat? Everyone wants to know this secret, Devon. Any kind of light you can shed on this for us would be great.
Well, it's the secret sauce, isn't it? Everybody wants it. But
yes,
the real answer is, I think I'll frame it for you this way. I've worked with sort of your everyday people. I've worked with elite athletes. I've worked with people that have been paralyzed, people with amputations, people in wheelchairs. So I think I've got experience, which is fairly wide ranging. And, I've developed myself within that role as a coach over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. But no matter how good I am at my job, I can give you any exercise. I can give you any program. I can give you anything, and it can be as good as I can possibly make it. But if you don't enjoy it, we've failed at the first hurdle.
Sure.
You know, so like if it makes you uncomfortable, if it makes you unsure, if you just hate doing it, if you find it boring, you're never going to achieve it. So I think for me, the most effective thing, especially if you're looking at weight loss, is to first find something that you enjoy and then find something that's sustainable. That's priority number one. And then if we want to dig into the sort of science and the sort of the numbers behind it, body fat, stubborn body fat, which is everyone's favorite thing to talk about, takes 20% more time and more oxygen to metabolize. Okay, so simply what that means is you have to exercise for 20% longer and you need to intake 20% more oxygen for that to start burning. So if you go out and do a 20-minute walk, probably no good. We're looking at 40 minutes, 50 minutes, north of an hour if you're going to go nice and steady, or you can go slightly shorter, but you need to get your heart rate up.
Sure. It sounds like hard work, man. Do you think people just programmed, people are listening to this podcast, we've, put this out for people to be motivated and things like that. So how, it's, I don't know, this is a tricky one really. Everyone wants to look good. No one's going to sit there and listen to this thinking, I'm just happy the way I am, in terms of if they're overweight, they've got that bit body fat. But are some people just destined just to be big boned like me? It's like,
yes and no. Obviously, everybody's different. That's the joy of life. But I think, again, first and foremost, we have to be as close to content within ourselves, and whatever makes you happy has to come first. We've got enough social influences and influencers to compare ourselves to and against, and that's enough to put you down every day. So first and foremost, you need to be happy within yourself. And then you can set the goals after that. And especially if it's an aesthetic goal, like I said, it's so important not to compare yourself to anybody else's journey, image, story, and just to work on yourself.
How would you track realistic goals, in your opinion? That's the best way.
Something, different things work for everybody. You've got the SMART goals, which everyone loves to talk about in health and fitness and business. But I think I like the saying that success breeds success. So we need to be achieving things, right? So whether it's on a day-to-day basis, no matter how big or small, or week-to-week basis, no matter how big or small, if you're achieving something, that in itself breeds motivation.
Sure.
And it gives you a reason to keep going, and it gives you the next step to go on to the next thing. So start small and just keep growing it. It's how all great things start, right? You never start at the top. You always start at the bottom and build it to something special.
So that's right. And it's the, you've got to start to be great kind of thing as well. That's the thing. You've just got to get started. So you're a CrossFit coach. Why should some people choose CrossFit over the gym?
It's a good question. Again, I think CrossFit is very simple and very complex at the same time. So it can be whatever you want it to be. I think if you take exercise and compare it to everyday life, before we look at sports and before we look at going in the gym, we need healthy people first. You need to be able to do life, to be able to carry your shopping into the house, to be able to get in and out of a car, to be able to get out of bed without being in pain as well. I think that's priority number one. And I think CrossFit offers something very special where we can prioritize movement and health first before we look at anything fancy. And I think developing those life foundations is one of the most important things you can get from it.
Now, here's an interesting question for me. What's your take on like Instagram influencers doing fitness over a personal trainer and a coach? Because it's huge now. It's everyone's a personal trainer, right?
Yeah. You can't get away from it. And because of the nature of our business, especially in the health and fitness industry, you have to become a part of that, unfortunately. There's an abundance of misinformation and therefore a lack of information and education. So I think it is a hell of a minefield, and it's important to try and separate what is good and correct and useful for us. And then we also have to keep in mind that a lot of what we see on there is probably not as it appears.
Well, it's like the ones I always see that I'm taking their example. They say, you can eat anything you want. You can eat your burgers, you can eat your chips. I don't know what accent that's meant to be, but and I'm like, okay, I'll keep doing that. And they said, you don't have to go running. You haven't got to do any of this stuff, and just lift a few bags of sugar and you're done. And it's all lies. It's not working. One little question I got for you actually: is it possible to lose weight by just doing weights alone? Because I've heard that a few people don't do much cardio and they just go to the gym, they do a little warm up, and then just do weights. Is that possible, or is that a myth?
Yes
In your
and no.
opinion?
Again, unfortunately it's never a straightforward answer. I think before we even get to the gym, there's that awful cliche saying that abs are made in the kitchen. Horrendous, I know, but there is an element of truth to that. You know, if we don't look after our health and what we put inside us first and foremost before we even get to the gym, again, we're going to sort of fall at the first hurdle. So we need to look at sort of how we're fueling ourselves and how we're setting ourselves up to get those abs if that's what the end goal is. But again, being healthy and focusing on our body and how it functions and how it feels before it looks is sort of the most important part of that.
Now, this podcast has been put together to inspire and motivate people as they start their daily journey, whether they're brushing their teeth at the time at the gym, whether they're driving to work. What do you do? How do you encourage your clients to keep going when they don't want to?
Again, I think like we spoke about earlier, having their reason why and working with them to develop that is really, really important. You know, if you don't have a reason to get out of bed, if you don't have a reason to come and exercise, then I think that's
So you help them with the why then. So you extract that from them and really.
Yeah, some people will have it already. Some people naturally have it and they'll come to you and they say, I want to achieve this and this is how I feel, and that's great. But some people know that they want to achieve something and they can feel inside them that they have that, but they don't necessarily know what that is.
Sure.
And you have to help guide them to that destination without sort of giving them your own answer and what you think, because essentially it's their journey at the end of the day.
Let's talk about inspirations. Who inspires you, or what inspires you yourself?
I'm not sure I've ever been starstruck as such, apart from today.
Smooth, my friend.
You're
Very
welcome.
smooth.
But I think some of the everyday people that I've worked with, and I've worked with a young lad, I won't use his name, but he was 13 when he came to me. He lost his legs to meningitis when he was 8. And he would still come into the gym. We would have a laugh. He would work really hard, have a great time, and then he would go back to school. Do you know what I mean? People like that.
Yeah.
Or I work with somebody now who was dancing one day, hit her head, had a traumatic brain injury, and ended up paralyzed. But she's now come back and she's, back to everyday life. She's gone back to work. She's doing absolutely incredible. And people like that have come up against some severe sort of adversity in their life, I don't know if there's anything more inspirational than that. Life's hard enough as it is. And then you have something like this come up and people that can persevere through that. I think that's the epitome of inspiration for me.
I think so as well, because things can just change like a finger click.
Yeah.
The weekend just gone, I was comparing a kind of band charity evening. So there was like 4 bands and it was raising money for a young girl who fell off a horse. She was a very active, fit girl, riding horses, huge passion, fell off, and that's it, paralyzed. No. And we were there raising money at the weekend, and she was there this year. She was able to come along. She was in a wheelchair, but she was still smiling. And as I bent down to speak to her and say hi and meet her for the first time, I'm like so inspired because this person's right in front of me, which, we all take for granted, being able to move our arms. Yeah. You can't even do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Best piece of advice you've been given on your journey of life so far, Devon, that could inspire others?
I'd say there's a couple. I think the first one would be whatever you put into life, you'll get out of it. Okay, so like day-to-day people, like you said earlier, you compliment somebody, you say good morning, you hold a door open, you do those little things which for you probably won't take a second thought, but for them might change their day. You don't know what people have going on in the background. So it's not hard to be a good person. It's nice to be nice, as they say. So doing the little things and putting into life, and eventually that will come back to you. Being a good person and helping out other people, it's not hard. And I like to stress that to people like all the time. It is not hard to be a good person. So if you go out into the world and you come across people that are struggling, which you will, just be a good person, and eventually that will come back around to you, because one day we'll need it. Everyone goes through the good days and the bad days, and you'll hope that when you're on a bad day, that goodness will come back around to you.
That's right. And the reap what you sow kind of thing, what you get out is, what you put in.
Yeah.
And we always, in terms of getting paid and reward, we always get paid or reward in direct proportion to what we give and the value to the marketplace.
Yeah, 100%.
That's very, very important.
And on that point, my second one was whatever you do in life is make sure you enjoy it.
Yes.
At this rate, at my age, I'm likely to be working until 70. Hopefully not. But
if you want to.
If I want to, and if I have to, I'm going to choose to do something that I enjoy, that I wake up every morning and look forward to going to do, like you do for this.
Sure.
That's really important for me.
Absolutely. What is the one thing that you must do weekly, in your opinion, to keep your mental health intact? Because that's a big thing at the moment.
100%.
And I think health comes into how we feel mentally as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it's something that everybody needs to prioritize, and I like that it's become a more sort of contemporary topic of conversation. But I think everybody probably needs to spend a little bit of time on themselves to work out how to maintain that good mental health, that good headspace. For me, I've grown up in the countryside. I've grown up on a farm. I love being by the sea. For me, that headspace, that good mental health comes from having mental clarity and that moment of quiet. Because life is hectic, right? With work, with people, with social media, we're always on our phones. I try not to be, but it's hard to get away from. And, having that moment of quiet, just without all the noise, without, all the interaction and the sort of day-to-day stresses of life. I think for me, just having that little bit of a reset once a week, twice a week if I can, that's really important.
There's a lot in it. I'm terrible, and I've said this in other episodes of the podcast, where I'm terrible with the phone. My usage of the phone is probably about 8 to 9 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's hard.
And that's not including the time I spend in front of the laptop as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know better. I know that I need to shut off from it. And I think the simple things sometimes, one thing I'm really starting to get into at the moment is trying to get more in tune with nature. Now, I'm not a hippie, and I love hippies. I don't care if you're a hippie. I love all people, but without being too hippified, just going out and just walking seems to help.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to find the right thing for you and keep our mind in a good state, and also live for the now as well. I try, and my opinion, and it's only my opinion, is that try not to stress and worry too much. If you listen to this podcast or watching it or whatever, is that, and I think Chris Bentley said it in an episode, that just know one day it's all going to end. At the end, that's the truth of it. So you can stress as much as you like, but just live for the now, enjoy the now.
Yeah.
Be the best person that you can be. So how do people get a hold of you then, Devon? What's the best way? Do you have a preferred?
Yeah, and again, unfortunately, social media. That's probably our biggest presence. So I co-run an online coaching business with my business partner Sam Perry called APX Coaching. So you can find us there across all social media platforms, or my easiest point of contact would be through Instagram at Coach Devon J. It's nice and simple.
And just finally, is there anything that you'd like to mention whilst we've got this platform today? Anything you want to put out to the world that I've not prompted you about in any of my questions? Anything that you want to leave a parting bit of advice? Anything at all? This is the time to do it.
Yeah, I think sort of accumulation of everything that we've spoken about today is that I think before anyone's health and fitness journey starts, I think our day-to-day should start with being a good person. And I think it should be finding your reason why, not necessarily for health and fitness or exercise, but your reason for why you go to work, your reason for why, you go and do the things you enjoy. Just having that understanding and your motivation within yourself, for yourself, not for anybody else, not for any extrinsic reward, but for what makes you happy and for what you find peace in. I think finding that is really, really important.
Well, wise words from what seems to be a very young man in front of me here. Devon, thank you so much for making the journey down today. I know you've driven a bit of a way, so thank you very much for that. And I'm sure all of our wonderful viewers, listeners will gain value from it.
Hope so.
But there you are. There is another episode of Morning Mojo, hopefully to inspire and kick off your day. Make sure you take the elements from it that suits you best. My thanks as always to Megan and to Jay, who's produced the podcast for us here today at the studios. It's always a pleasure to work with them. But don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all those wonderful things. But for myself and Devon, we will see you somewhere on the journey.